Hi there, this is Mr. Evans. This video looks at mergers and takeovers, and it's the down here now in the bottom here of this 3.9.1, looking at these different methods of growth, and I'm going to cover both mergers and takeovers in this video. So just to get our definitions right, a merger occurs when two or more businesses agree to become integrated and to form one business under joint ownership. So Orange and T-Mobile came together to form the company EE, formerly known as Everything Everywhere, but Orange and T-Mobile, two separate companies, they agreed to become integrated under one business, joint ownership, now called EE. Equally, Dixons and Carphone Warehouse became Dixons Carphone. The owners of those companies agreed to operate together, and it was a merger. A takeover, on the other hand, can be hostile. Okay, a hostile takeover occurs when one business gains control over another and becomes the owner by buying 51% of the shares. Now, lots of students get kind of caught up with this. A takeover doesn't necessarily have to be hostile, but it's definitely one business gaining control over the other. Sainsbury's gained control over Argos. That doesn't necessarily mean Argos shareholders or management were against it. It's just that Sainsbury's is now the majority shareholder, and actually Argos are continuing to trade as Argos. They're not trading as Sainsbury's. 21st Century Fox and Disney. Now these two companies, again, they actually agreed to merge. 21st Century Fox were fine for Disney to buy them, but Disney now own over 51% of the shares. So both of these are actually examples of, these aren't hostile takeovers. A hostile takeover can occur when one management company buys out another management company against the will of that management, against the will of the company that they're taking over. I don't remember it ever being an issue in an AQA exam before. You haven't had the detailed knowledge of that, but it just pays to be aware of that situation. What you do need to be aware of is the advantages and disadvantages of this form of external growth, where we're looking at mergers and takeovers. So we'll quickly go through these. The advantages of mergers and takeovers are that you can increase market share really quickly. Okay, if I'm Orange, I can gain all of T-Mobile's customers very quickly if we merge together. It increases our market share. EE have got a much bigger market share than those two companies did. We can also gain economies of scale. We can negotiate cheaper prices with suppliers. We can negotiate better deals on technology. We can improve the skills of our management company. We're gaining economies of scale. We may also gain new competencies and skills. One of the reasons that Sainsbury's overtook Argos is because Argos had a very effective distribution network and delivery network, which Sainsbury's wanted to take over it. They had those skills that Sainsbury's wanted, and that was a big reason that Sainsbury's bought them. Benefiting from synergies. So synergy, it's often defined as 2 + 2 = 5. In other words, when two businesses come together, they're able to combine their skills and knowledge in order to create better value than those two organisations were separately. So a good example of this is the Chery Jaguar Land Rover merger, where Chery are a Chinese automotive company, Jaguar Land Rover essentially a British automotive company, and these two companies came together as a joint venture, actually, but the company benefits from Chery's knowledge of the Chinese customer, while Jaguar Land Rover produce excellent cars. So they benefit from synergies, and Jaguar Land Rover wouldn't be able to sell as many cars without Chery, and Chery wouldn't be able to sell as many cars without Jaguar Land Rover. So together they're stronger. That's basically what synergy is. We might use it to control the supply chain. So if we may buy our supplier to stop them from changing our prices, secure the price of our suppliers, or we may buy the distributor of our product downstream. You know, we are a manufacturer and we buy out the shop, so we can sell the product and we can gain that increased added value that you get from selling to the final customer. A company may want to increase itself in size, so it's not in fact taken over itself, so it gets bigger, adds value, and it becomes less of a takeover target for other companies because it's more expensive to buy. Other advantages are that you can gain access to new segments of your existing market. So if I'm a company based in the south of England and I buy a company in the north of England selling the same products that I do, okay, it's basically the same customer, so aiming at the same sort of income, gender, etc. But I'm now gaining access to a new segment of that market, i.e. a new geographical area. I may do it to eliminate competition. I may buy one of my competitors so that the market is less competitive. Arguably, that was a strong reason for T-Mobile and Orange to come together. It might help me to spread my risk by diversifying into new markets. Maybe I take over someone who's already operating in a market different to me, and I can spread my risk by doing that. So Tesco are at the moment looking to overtake the food wholesaler Booker. Tesco is essentially a company that sells food to private individuals. Booker are a wholesaler who sell to businesses, you know, like Wagamamas, and Tesco are looking to spread their risk by getting into that market. And it also allows us to acquire intangible assets like brands, patents, trademarks, etc. So all of these are advantages of external growth through mergers and takeovers. However, there are some very significant disadvantages as well. First of all, being the cost of undertaking these mergers and takeovers. We need to buy these other businesses, which can be extremely expensive, and we're going to need to fund that somehow. It can also be very difficult, you know, related to the cost. It can be very difficult to accurately value another business. Okay, so we think it's worth X amount. Okay, because they've got this brand or something, they've got this, you know, copyrighted, trademarked brand image that we think is worth a certain amount of money. How can we actually value that accurately? It can be very difficult to do. By one company overtaking another, it can create problems for the brand image. Maybe customers, you know, view one brand particularly well, one brand not so well, and by coming together, these it may ruin the brand image. So, for example, Body Shop, which had a reputation as a very ethical business, was overtaken by L'Oreal, a huge multinational company that maybe didn't have such a strong ethical image, and that might have put off some people from shopping at the Body Shop who shopped there because it was that independent company with really strong ethical values. Problems of integration can be absolutely huge. What I mean by that is when we bring two separate companies together, often they'll have separate computer systems, they'll have different management teams, they're going to, different factories, different ways of doing things. It's going to be very difficult to actually integrate two businesses well, and this is why a lot of mergers and acquisitions fail, because the management team don't have the skill, or it's more difficult to integrate those two companies than it was initially thought. It can be hugely complex to do and creates an awful lot of problems. Another reason that a lot of takeovers might fail is that employees might be resistant. You know, they might not want to be taken over by another company, particularly if that company is looking to do things like cut costs, create economies of scale by getting rid of some of the marketing team, for example, closing down factories. All of these things can lead to resistance from employees who may feel threatened by the change. Management styles may be incompatible, the structures and cultures of different companies may be incompatible, and it's kind of related to that change management. Okay, we might find out that the two companies simply can't work together, they're just too different. The synergies that we expected to accumulate may be actually difficult to realise in reality. So a lot of these difficulties are about, okay, it sounds, these mergers and acquisitions sound very nice on paper, but they can be very difficult to actually achieve in reality. The Chrysler-Daimler merger in the car industry was an example of a merger that really didn't go well at all, and in fact those two companies had to separate. And finally, we may start to suffer from diseconomies of scale. As our company gets bigger, it becomes more difficult to communicate, it becomes more difficult to coordinate, and therefore the motivation of our workers can suffer. So mergers and takeovers, a very interesting area. It's often in the news, and there are advantages and disadvantages of these different types of external growth that you need to be aware of.